It was just after dawn on June 9, 1984, when a milkman made a horrific discovery on a quiet street in Bath, England. A young girl's body lay on the pavement, brutally murdered. Her name was Melanie Road. She was 17. Her killer wouldn't be found for another 31 years. This is the haunting story of a murder that shocked a city and the breakthrough that finally brought justice. Melanie Road was bright, beautiful, and full of promise. A top student with dreams of becoming a doctor, she had just completed her O-level exams. On the night of June 8, 1984, she went out with friends to Beau Nash nightclub in Bath. It was a normal night for a teenager celebrating the end of school stress. Around 1:30 a.m., Melanie decided to walk home alone. It was less than a mile. She never made it. The next morning, her body was found. She had been raped, stabbed 26 times, and left to bleed to death. Her blood formed a trail 100 yards long, suggesting she tried to escape. The murder devastated Bath because it was a brutal attack in a safe, quiet city. People were terrified. Police launched an extensive investigation. Over 90 men were interviewed. Blood samples were taken. Witnesses were questioned, but nothing matched. The forensic tools of the time couldn't deliver what police needed, and Melanie's killer simply vanished. Melanie's parents, John and Adrian Road, were shattered. Their daughter had been taken in the most violent way imaginable. John appeared in media, pleading for anyone with information to come forward, but the years passed. The case went cold, and yet Melanie's name never left the hearts of the investigators who worked the case. In 2009, forensic science had evolved. Police re-examined the original evidence and managed to extract a full DNA profile from the crime scene. It was a huge breakthrough, but when they ran it through the national database, nothing. The killer had never been arrested. Still, the DNA sat in the system, waiting until 2015.
We are hoping for success on another case that's remained unsolved for decades. The rape and murder of a teenager, 17-year-old Melanie Road. For a quarter of a century, Melanie's family have had to live with the knowledge that her killer has never been caught. Can you bring them some comfort by naming him tonight?
By 2015, Melanie Road's case had remained unsolved for 31 long years. The DNA was there waiting in the database, but no match had ever come up. Then came a routine arrest. A woman in her early 40s had been taken into custody after a domestic altercation in Swindon. Standard procedure meant she had to give a DNA swab. No one could have imagined what that sample would unlock. When her DNA entered the system, it triggered something extraordinary, a near-perfect familial match to the DNA found on Melanie Road's body. She had been arrested at age 41 in 2014 for a minor incident, and her DNA profile was taken, leading the police to her father. That woman was the daughter of a man who had evaded justice for over 3 decades. Detectives dug through her family records. Her father's name came up quickly: Christopher Hanton, age 63. He lived in Bristol, less than 15 miles from where Melanie had been murdered. Christopher Hanton was, by all appearances, an ordinary man. A father, a retired technician, a quiet man living in the suburbs. He had never been arrested and never raised suspicion. But behind the calm exterior lay the memory of an unimaginable crime. Police approached Hanton under the guise of a casual inquiry. They asked him to voluntarily provide a DNA sample. He refused, and the refusal only deepened the investigators' belief that they had the right man. They obtained a warrant and seized a sample. The results were undeniable: a 100% match to the DNA profile taken from Melanie's body in 1984. After 31 years, the mystery was over. It was the 8th of June, 1984, an unusually warm Friday night in Bath, England. 17-year-old Melanie Road had been murdered by her father. That night, she went out with her friends to a local club called Beau Nash, a popular spot where teenagers gathered to celebrate milestones and let loose. It was supposed to be a carefree night. At around 1:30 a.m., Melanie said goodbye to her friends. She chose to walk home alone, which was just under a mile to her family's house. She never made it. Somewhere along that quiet walk home, she was being watched. His name was Christopher Hanton. At the time, Hanton was a 32-year-old father of two. He worked as a technician. He lived in nearby Bristol. That night, for reasons he never fully explained, he was in Bath prowling the streets. He saw Melanie walking alone, and something dark and twisted took over. Hanton followed her. At some point, he approached her, and it ended in violence. Hanton launched a sudden, frenzied attack. He stabbed Melanie 26 times. He raped her. The forensic evidence would later show that Melanie tried to escape desperately. A trail of blood stretched more than 100 yards, proving she had managed to break away before being caught again. She was found later that morning, at around 5:30 a.m., by a milkman making his rounds. Her blouse was soaked in blood. Her shoes had come off. She had died alone, just steps from home. The brutality shocked the nation. As Melanie's parents were waking up to a nightmare, Christopher Hanton quietly returned to his home in Bristol. He changed out of his blood-stained clothes. He slipped back into family life like nothing had happened. And for 31 years, he kept the truth hidden. The truth would eventually come, but not through guilt. Not through a confession. It came from a swab. A single DNA sample taken from his daughter in 2015. That triggered a match and finally exposed Christopher Hanton for what he really was, a monster hiding in plain sight. In the interrogation room, the pressure mounted. At first, Hanton denied everything. But as evidence piled up in front of him, the DNA, the timeline, the blood trail he finally broke. He admitted that he had seen Melanie walking home alone that night in June 1984. He followed her. He claimed it was an impulsive act. He approached her, spoke to her. She rejected him. She wasn't interested, and that rejection ignited something monstrous in him. He snapped and grabbed her, dragged her into the shadows. Then, in a brutal frenzy, he stabbed her 26 times. He raped her. He left her there in the dark, bleeding out alone in the early morning silence. Hanton told police that he panicked and fled, went home, took off his blood-stained clothes. Then he walked into his house where his wife and young children were still sleeping and pretended nothing had happened. For more than 3 decades, he kept that lie. He watched his children grow up, held down jobs, smiled in family photos, all while carrying the weight of a savage murder that had stolen the life of a 17-year-old girl. In May 2016, Christopher Hanton stood in the dock at Bristol Crown Court. He pleaded guilty to the murder of Melanie Road. The judge described his crime as cold, calculated, and cruel. Hanton was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 22 years. He will be over 80 by the time he is even eligible for parole. Melanie's mother, Zhang Road, was in court. After 31 years of questions, grief, and haunting silence, she finally saw justice. In a heartbreaking statement, Zhang said, "Melanie was so full of life. There are no winners in this. I just wanted the truth, and now we have it." The case of Melanie Road is more than a crime story. It's a story of grief frozen in time, of a mother who waited 3 decades to look her daughter's killer in the eye. It's also a story of the silent power of DNA, the invisible fingerprint that outlasts years, technology, and time itself. If not for a routine police procedure in 2015, this case might still be cold. One arrest, one sample. That was all it took to expose the monster hiding behind the mask of a quiet suburban man. Melanie Road was just 17. She had plans. She had dreams. A single walk home took all of that away. But through the tireless efforts of detectives, forensic scientists, and the unrelenting love of a grieving family, Melanie finally got the justice she deserved.